Moscow, March 1953. On the night of the 4th to the 5th of March, the death of Joseph Vissarionovich Stalin was announced on the radio. But one man knew the truth. The truth about what really happened. A man who had been silent for 30 years, fearing for his family's life. A man whose name was erased from all documents, and who himself officially did not exist. His name was Alexander Mikhailovich Krutov, Comrade Stalin's personal driver from 1945 to 1953. What you are about to read is based on his diaries, found in 1993 during the demolition of an old house on the Arbat. Diaries that overturned historians' understanding of the final years of the leader of the peoples. Prologue. The last trip. The evening of February 28, 1953, was unusually warm for a Moscow winter. Alexander Mikhailovich Krutov sat in the Kremlin garage, wiping the already perfectly clean windshield of the black ZS-110. For 8 years, he had driven Stalin himself. But that evening, something was wrong. Usually the call came through the head of the garage, Major General Vlasik. But that evening the phone rang directly in the car's cabin, on the very secret line whose existence only 3 people in the country knew about. In 15 minutes, the side gate. Stalin's voice sounded tired, almost doomed. Krutov knew what the word alone meant. No security, no escort. In 8 years of service, this had only happened 4 times. And every time after such trips, someone from the country's top leadership disappeared forever. Exactly 15 minutes later, a dark figure in a familiar greatcoat got into the car. But when Krutov glanced in the rearview mirror, he barely suppressed a gasp. The leader's face had aged 10 years in the last week. Deep wrinkles cut across his forehead, his eyes were sunken, and his famous mustache had turned almost completely gray. To Vorobyovi Gory, the old road through Kamovniki, Stalin ordered, and added a phrase that sent a chill down the driver's spine. This is my last trip, Alexander. After tonight, many things will change. Krutov silently pulled away. In 8 years, he had learned not to ask questions, but that night, he was destined to learn a secret that could change the entire history of the Soviet Union. Chapter 1. How I Became the Leader's Driver. Alexander Mikhailovich Krutov never dreamed of being close to power. The son of a simple mechanic from Suralmash, he fought honorably, reached Berlin as a senior sergeant, was wounded 3 times and had 2 orders of the Red Star. After the war, he returned to Moscow, where he had worked as a driver at the motor pool of the People's Commissariat of Heavy Industry before being drafted. May 1945. Moscow was celebrating victory, and Krutov was sitting in a basement in Lubyanka, unable to understand why he had been arrested. The 3rd day without sleep, a bright light shining in his eyes, an investigator asking the same questions over and over. Last name, Krutov. First name, patronymic, Alexander Mikhailovich. Year of birth, 1910. Where did you serve? 1st Belarusian Front, 233rd Rifle Division. Do you know why you are here? I do not, Comrade Major. On the 4th day, the cell door opened, and instead of a guard, a man in an NKVD general's uniform entered. Lieutenant General Vlasik, chief of Stalin's personal security. Although at the time, Krutov didn't know who was standing before him. Can you drive? He asked. Yes, sir. 5 years behind the wheel before the war. Did you abandon your vehicle in combat? Never. Near Königsberg, I evacuated a wounded colonel under fire. Family? Wife and daughter. My daughter is 5 years old. Do you drink? On holidays, Comrade General. A blabbermouth? Not at all. Vlasik silently studied his file for another 10 minutes, then abruptly shut the folder. We're going to one place now. You will drive the car. If you manage, you'll live. If you don't, your family will receive a notice that you went missing in action near Berlin. Understood? Krutov understood. The NKVD didn't joke. An hour later, he was brought to the Kremlin garage. They showed him a black armored ZS-101, a car that officially did not exist. Armor 70 millimeters thick, bulletproof glass 65 millimeters thick, an engine with 162 horsepower. You will drive a route I specify. There will be a passenger in the cabin. Do not turn around. Do not speak. Do not look in the rearview mirror. You will reach the destination. You will wait. You will bring him back. It's simple. Vlasic spoke calmly, but Krutov sensed it. This was a test. At 11 p.m., a man in a marshal's uniform got into the car. Krutov didn't turn around, but out of the corner of his eye, he noticed the characteristic profile. It was Marshal Zhukov. But something was wrong. The movement was too stiff. The posture incorrect. "To the near dacha," Zhukov ordered, in a voice that resembled the marshal's, but was still different. Krutov drove. The entire way, he felt an intense gaze on him. At the dacha, the marshal got out and disappeared into the house. He returned 2 hours later. But this was a different man, in the same uniform, with the same mustache, but completely different. The return trip passed in silence. At the Kremlin gates, the passenger got out, and Vlasic approached the car. "Did you notice the switch?" "Yes, sir, Comrade General. 2 different people." "And if I told you it was one and the same?" "Impossible. The first one smoked papyracy, hand-rolled cigarettes. He smelled of tobacco. The second smelled of pipe tobacco. The first had a scar on his left hand. The second did not." Vlasic nodded in satisfaction. "You will drive, Comrade Stalin. But first, 3 months of training. And remember the main thing. You no longer exist. To everyone, you died near Berlin. Even to your wife. She will be paid a survivor's pension." The next 3 months were hell. Krutov was taught not just to drive, but to drive as no one else in the country could. Extreme driving, evasion techniques, anti-crash training. They taught him to shoot all types of weapons, provide first aid, identify poisons and explosives. But most importantly, they taught him to be silent and to forget. You are not a person. You are a function. You see, but do not remember. You hear, but do not understand. You know, but you are silent, the NKVD instructor repeated every day. In August 1945, Krutov was summoned by Stalin personally. The first meeting took place in his Kremlin office. The leader stood with his back to him, looking out the window. "Do you know why you were chosen?" Stalin asked without turning. "I do not, Comrade Stalin. You have no ambition. You are not party, not komsomol, not a careerist. You are just an honest soldier. There are few like you left. Everyone wants power, money, fame, but you just want to live and raise your daughter. That is good. The dead do not betray." Stalin turned, and Krutov saw his eyes up close for the first time. Tired, bloodshot eyes of a man who does not sleep at night. "You will drive me to places others must not know about. You will see things no one else must see. You will hear things no one else must hear. And you will be silent. Always. Even under torture. Do you agree?" "Yes, sir, Comrade Stalin." "Good. And remember, I trust no one, not even Beria, especially not Beria. But I will have to trust you, because my life will be in your hands every day. Do not fail me." On August 8, 1945, Alexander Krutov officially ceased to exist, and unofficially became one of the most informed people in the Soviet Union. The man who knew all the leader's secrets. On the very first day of service, something happened that made Krutov realize his life would never be the same. Chapter 2. The ZS-110. A car with secrets. The black ZS-110 that Krutov was assigned to drive was not just a car. It was a fortress on wheels, a laboratory, and a command center all at once. Officially, only 5 of these cars were ever produced. But the one entrusted to Krutov was not listed in any documents. On the morning of August 9, 1945, the head of the Kremlin Garage's technical service, Colonel of Engineering Troops Zubov, gave Krutov a tour of the vehicle. What he saw was staggering. Armor. Chrome nickel steel, 75 millimeters. It could withstand a direct hit from an anti-tank rifle. Glass. Special tempered triplex, 68 millimeters. A bullet from a sniper rifle would only leave a scratch. Zubov spoke with pride, patting the car's hood. But that was only the beginning. Concealed under the back seat was a secret compartment with a state-of-the-art radio station, a direct line to the Kremlin, the General Staff, and Lubyanka. range up to 1,000 kilometers. And this, the colonel pressed an inconspicuous button under the dashboard, is the special pride of our engineers. The rear seat shifted, revealing a hatch to a false bottom. A person could fit in there, with an air supply for 2 hours. "What is this for?" Krutov asked. "Comrade Stalin sometimes transports special passengers, those who must not be seen, even in the Kremlin." In the trunk, besides a spare generalissimus uniform, there was a small case with medications, the leader's personal first aid kit, assembled by Professor Vinogradov, ampules with unknown drugs, syringes, even surgical instruments. "Comrade Stalin doesn't trust doctors. He prefers to have everything necessary at hand," Zubov explained. But the most surprising device was under the hood. Next to the engine, a small metal box was installed, with wires leading to the dashboard. "What is this?" Krutov had never seen anything like it. "A military secret. Do you know what radar is?" "I heard the British used it against German aircraft." "This is a portable radar. It detects any radio transmitters within a 500-meter radius. If someone tries to plant a bug or transmit a signal about the car's location, we'll know." Krutov whistled. Not even the Americans had technology like this. For the next 2 days, he studied the car down to the last bolt. He learned to change a tire in 45 seconds, to start the engine with a secret switch if the main ignition was disabled, and to activate a smoke screen from the exhaust pipe. On the 3rd day, an incident occurred that nearly cost Krutov his life. He was checking the oil when his hand brushed against something foreign, a small metal box, taped to the undercarriage with electrical tape. "Comrade Colonel," he called Zubov. The colonel glanced at the discovery and turned pale. "Don't move. Don't even breathe." 15 minutes later, a sapper squad rushed in. The entire garage was evacuated. A senior lieutenant sapper carefully detached the device and carried it out in a blast-proof container. An American-made radio beacon. Someone wanted to know where Comrade Stalin goes. Zubov wiped sweat from his brow. If you hadn't found it, the entire garage would have been shot. That evening, Beria summoned Krutov. The meeting took place in the basement of Lubyanka, in a windowless office. "Good job finding it. But here's what's interesting. The beacon was planted the night before last. Only vetted personnel have access to the garage. That means the rat is one of our own." Beria paced the office, his hands behind his back. "You will report everything unusual directly to me, bypassing Vlasic. Understood?" But Comrade Stalin said, "Comrade Stalin must not know about our conversation. This is for his own safety. The war is over, but the enemies remain, and they are closer than you think." Beria gave Krutov a phone number, just 4 digits. "Call if anything, anytime." Leaving the office, Krutov understood. He was caught between a rock and a hard place. Stalin had ordered him not to trust Beria. Beria had ordered him to spy on Stalin's circle. One wrong step, and he would be crushed like a bug. The next day, the first trip with the leader took place. And it was so strange that Krutov, for the rest of his life, could never understand what he was transporting that day in the car's false bottom. Chapter 3. The Rules That Cannot Be Broken. August 12, 1945. The first official trip. Vlasic personally instructed Krutov. Rule 1. 3 routes: primary, secondary, and emergency. You decide which one to take at the last moment. Not even Comrade Stalin should know in advance. Rule 2. The rearview mirror. You only look at the road behind you, never at the passenger, even if he addresses you. Rule 3. Silence. You do not speak unless spoken to. You do not comment, do not advise, do not interfere in conversations. Rule 4. After every trip, the technicians inspect the car, and you write a report. Where you went, the exact time, who you met. 1 copy to me, the second to the special department, and the main rule. Comrade Stalin sometimes tests you. He might order you to violate an instruction. Do not give in. The instruction is more important than any order. At 10 p.m., Stalin got into the car. Krutov expected to see a tired old man, but the leader looked energetic, even rejuvenated. "To the near dacha, through the center," Stalin ordered. Krutov pulled away, choosing the secondary route through the Arbat. It was quiet in the car. Only occasionally did Stalin smoke his pipe, filling the cabin with the aroma of English tobacco. On the garden ring, the leader suddenly ordered, "Stop!" Krutov stopped. They were parked opposite a nondescript mansion, its windows dark. "See the third window from the right on the second floor?" Stalin asked. "Yes, sir." "If a light comes on in it, we leave immediately. If it stays dark, we wait 5 minutes." The window remained dark. Exactly 5 minutes later, a man in civilian clothes emerged from the entrance, quickly approached the car, and slipped into the false bottom. Stalin didn't even turn around. "Continue on the route." At the dacha, the mysterious passenger climbed out of the hiding spot and disappeared into the house. Krutov waited for 3 hours. Then the man returned, climbed back into the false bottom, and they drove back. At the same mansion, the passenger left the car. Only later, many years later, did Krutov find out. That mansion housed an illegal resident of American intelligence recruited by the NKVD back in 1937, and the man they were transporting was the nuclear physicist Klaus Fuchs, who passed the secrets of the atomic bomb to the USSR. The following weeks, the trips became regular. Krutov drove Stalin to Politburo meetings, to the dacha, to the theater. But once a week, there were strange night trips. Always after midnight, always without security, always on special routes. On September 23rd, something happened that forced Krutov to break the main rule. They were driving along a deserted road in Kuntsevo when Krutov spotted a car in the rear-view mirror, no license plates, driving behind them with its lights off. "Comrade Stalin, we're being followed." "I know, keep driving." The car was getting closer. Krutov saw the barrel of an automatic rifle stick out of the window. "Comrade Stalin, they have weapons." "I said drive." The instinct for self-preservation was stronger. Krutov yanked the steering wheel. The car went into a controlled skid. A burst of automatic fire missed them. Krutov hit the gas, pulling away from the pursuers. "I ordered you to drive straight." Stalin was furious. "Forgive me, Comrade Stalin, but—" "Well done." The leader suddenly laughed. "It was a test. Wanted to see. Instinct or orders. Instinct won. That's good. A dead driver is no use to me." The pursuers turned out to be Vlasic's men, conducting a drill. But Krutov learned his lesson. Sometimes breaking the rules meant saving a life. October brought new strange occurrences. Stalin began traveling to meetings with people who officially didn't exist. Generals without insignia, scientists without names, foreigners without documents. One night, they drove to an abandoned church on the outskirts of Moscow. Stalin went inside alone and stayed for 2 hours. He returned pale, his hands shaking. "To no one. Ever. Understood?" was all he said. Krutov nodded but memorized the location. Many years later, after Stalin's death, he would return there and find a walled-off room in the church basement, containing documents that could have changed history. Documents about secret negotiations with the Vatican to create a unified anti-American front. In November, an incident occurred that nearly cost Krutov his life. They were returning from the dacha when Stalin ordered him to stop at the Novodevichi cemetery. "Wait here." The leader walked off into the darkness between the graves. Half an hour passed, then an hour. Krutov began to worry. Violating all rules, he went to look for Stalin. He found him by an unmarked grave. The leader was on his knees, crying. Fresh roses lay nearby. "I told you to wait in the car." Stalin didn't turn. "Forgive me, Comrade Stalin. I was worried." "Do you know whose grave this is?" "No. And you won't. But remember, everyone has those they betrayed. And those who betrayed them. Sometimes, they are the same people." They returned to the car in silence. The next day, Vlasic summoned Krutov. "Comrade Stalin told me about yesterday. By instruction, I should have you shot. But he asked me to keep you. Says you're the only one who genuinely worries about him. That's a rarity. But don't break the rules again. There won't be a second time." December 1945 brought an event that showed Krutov he wasn't just driving the leader of the USSR. He was driving the man who decided the fate of the world. And one night, he was destined to witness a meeting that no one knew about. Chapter 4. The Meeting at Vorobyovi Gori. January 17, 1947. Moscow was buried in snow. The thermometer showed -28. In weather like this, even dogs preferred to stay indoors. But exactly at midnight, the secret line rang. In 10 minutes. Alone. Full readiness. Stalin's voice sounded tense. Krutov already knew what full readiness meant. Pistol at hand, PPSH submachine gun under the seat, smoke grenades activated, radar on. Stalin got into the car in strange attire. A simple vatnik, quilted jacket, ushanka, fur hat, valenki, felt boots. Like an ordinary worker. To Vorobyovi Gori, the observation deck. And Alexander, tonight you saw nothing and heard nothing, not even for the report. The drive took 40 minutes. He had to weave, cover his tracks. The radar detected signals twice, but they quickly vanished. Someone was trying to follow, but Krutov skillfully evaded them. At the observation deck, a car was waiting. A black Studebaker with diplomatic plates. The American embassy. Wait. If I'm not back in an hour, leave. Report to Poskrebyshev that I ordered you to leave me. Stalin got out and walked toward the American car. A man in the uniform of a U.S. Army general emerged from it. In the headlights, Krutov recognized the face. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, future U.S. President, and, at that time, Chief of Staff of the Army. They shook hands and walked toward the edge of the observation deck. Krutov activated the listening device. Another secret function of the car. A directional microphone that could pick up a conversation from up to 100 meters away. Mr. Stalin, President Truman does not know about our meeting, Eisenhower said in accented Russian. Neither does the Politburo, General. Sometimes leaders must resolve issues without witnesses. Did you receive our proposals? Yes. The division of Europe into spheres of influence, the West for you, the East for us. But what about Germany? The 4 occupation zones remain, but we propose a secret protocol. In 10 years, reunification under neutral status. And Japan? Yours. You can send in troops. We will not interfere. Krutov couldn't believe his ears. The 2 superpowers were dividing the world like a pie. What do you want in return? Stalin asked. Stop supporting the communists in Greece and Turkey, and most importantly, do not interfere in China. Let Chiang Kai-shek and Mao sort it out themselves. Mao is our ally. Was. But he is becoming too independent, isn't he? Our intelligence reports, he no longer listens to Moscow. Stalin was silent, lighting his pipe. Smoke rose in the frosty air. There is one more question, General. Your atomic bomb? And yours? Don't pretend you don't have it. Fuchs gave you all the blueprints. Where did you... Mr. Stalin, let's not play games. We know about your nuclear project. You know that we know. I propose a pact. To not use nuclear weapons against each other. Under any circumstances. And third countries? We won't let them create a bomb. Neither you nor us. A monopoly of 2. They spoke for another hour. Krutov was recording on the wire recorder. Another technological marvel in the car. They agreed on the division of Korea, the fate of Iran, the control of Middle Eastern oil. Last question, Mr. Stalin. Your health. Our doctors are ready. No need, General. I can still fight. Then, the question of a successor. Who will we be dealing with after you? Who would you like? Anyone but Beria. On this, we are in agreement, General. They shook hands. Eisenhower handed Stalin a briefcase. A personal letter from the president. And something else. The lists of your people in the Manhattan Project. A gesture of goodwill. Why are you doing this? Because soon we will have a common enemy, China. They will build the bomb no matter what we do. And then, we will have to unite. The American left first. Stalin stood on the deck, looking at the Moscow night. Then he returned to the car. Let's go. And Alexander, that conversation. What conversation, Comrade Stalin? The leader chuckled. Correct. What conversation? But Stalin opened the briefcase right in the car. Krutov watched in the mirror as the leader read the documents. And how his face grew darker and darker. Bastards, was all he said. All of them are bastards. Ours and theirs. The next day, 3 leading nuclear physicists were arrested. Their names were on the American list. But someone not on the list was also arrested. The head of Beria's personal intelligence, General Sudoplatov. Stalin had begun his own game, and Krutov understood. He had witnessed the deal of the century. A deal that defined the entire post-war history, and he was the only one who knew about it. Chapter 5. The Dacha Without an Address. March 1948 was unusually warm. The snow melted, turning the roads into a muddy mess. But it was precisely in this quagmire that Stalin preferred to travel to places no one was supposed to know about. "We are driving far today. Take a canister of gasoline and food for 24 hours, the leader ordered on the morning of March 15th. They left at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as dusk was falling. Stalin was alone, which was happening more and more often. After Zhdanov's death in August of 48, he trusted no one. "Take the Dmitrovskoye highway. I will point out the turns." They drove for 2 hours, turned off the highway onto a dirt road, then another, then onto a forest road that wasn't on any maps. Krutov engaged the all-wheel drive. The ZIS struggled to crawl through the washed-out track. Deep in the forest, behind 3 rows of barbed wire and a checkpoint with no identifying marks, stood a nondescript wooden house. Or rather, it looked wooden. Looking closer, Krutov realized it was clever camouflage. Beneath the wooden siding, a concrete bunker was hidden. "Wait here. And no matter what happens, do not leave the car, even if you hear gunshots." Stalin left. Krutov remained in the car, checking his weapon. The place was eerie. No sounds. Not even birds sang. And a smell, a strange chemical smell that tickled his throat. An hour later, a man in a white lab coat and mask came out of the house. He approached the car, knocked on the window. Krutov didn't open it. An order was an order. The man shouted something, gestured toward the house, but Krutov sat motionlessly. Then the man in the coat pulled out a pistol. At that moment, Stalin ran out of the house. His face was pale, his eyes filled with a terror Krutov had never seen before. The leader shouted something at the man in the coat, who lowered his pistol. Stalin got into the car. "Go! Fast!" Krutov hit the gas. In the rearview mirror, he saw the man in the coat firing after them, but the bullets fell short. "Comrade Stalin, what was in there?" "Hell, Alexander. Real hell. And I created it myself." The leader didn't utter another word, but Krutov noticed Stalin's hands were shaking, and on the cuff of his jacket, there were strange dark brown stains. Like blood, but darker. A week later, Beria summoned Krutov. "Where were you on March 15th? The report states a trip to the near Dacha." "You're lying. The car was spotted on the Dmitrovskoye highway. Comrade Stalin ordered it." "I know what he ordered. But you must understand, there are things that not even Comrade Stalin is supposed to know. For his own good." Beria went to his safe, took out a folder with photographs. "Look." The photos showed corpses. Dozens of corpses. The people had clearly not died natural deaths. Their faces were contorted in horror. Their bodies twisted into unnatural poses. These are the results of the experiments at that laboratory. Biological weapons. A new strain of plague crossed with anthrax. 1 gram can destroy a city of 1 million people. Why are you showing me this? Because Comrade Stalin ordered the laboratory and all witnesses destroyed. But I consider this a mistake. The Americans are not sleeping. They also have biological weapons. We need parity. I am just a driver. No, you are Comrade Stalin's eyes and ears. He trusts you. Convince him not to destroy the project. And if I can't? Then that fate, Beria nodded at the photographs, awaits everyone. Because the Americans will strike first. Krutov left the office in a cold sweat. He was in the middle of a game whose rules he didn't understand. Stalin feared biological weapons. Beria wanted to develop them. And somewhere across the ocean, the Americans were preparing their own doomsday weapon. A month later, they drove to that laboratory again. But where the bunker had been, a crater was smoking. The forest within a 1-kilometer radius was dead. The trees were blackened, the grass scorched, the ground covered in a strange white powder. "Napalm," Stalin said. The only way to guarantee the infection is destroyed. Beria thinks I'm a fool, but I know some genies must stay in the bottle. And the scientists? What scientists? They never existed. In May of 48, they drove there one more time. Where the crater had been, a young forest was already growing. Too fast for natural recovery. Krutov understood. The land had been treated with something that accelerated plant growth. The traces were covered perfectly. But one day, long after Stalin's death, Krutov met a man who claimed to have worked in that laboratory. Professor Zelinsky, who officially died in 47. We didn't just create a weapon. We created the end of the world in a test tube, and Stalin understood that. He saw the results of the tests on prisoners and ordered everything destroyed. But Beria saved samples. Somewhere in the basements of Lubyanka, ampules of that contagion are still stored. Krutov didn't know whether to believe the professor, but he knew one thing for sure. On that March day in 48, Stalin saw something that changed him. After that, the leader became even more suspicious, even more isolated, as if he understood that humanity was capable of destroying itself, and he, Stalin, had played a part in it. And ahead of Krutov lay another trip, which would show that the leader of the peoples had secrets that not even the all-powerful Beria knew about. Chapter 6. Midnight at Kazan Station, November 1949. Moscow was preparing to celebrate Stalin's 70th birthday. The entire city was hung with portraits of the leader, but the man himself was growing increasingly grim and suspicious. On November 27th, a month before the anniversary, the night call came. Kazan Station, service entrance, no uniform. Krutov changed into civilian clothes, a simple vatnik, a cap, boots. The car was also disguised. The government plates were removed. Ordinary Moscow plates were put on. Stalin was dressed just as simply. Only his pipe gave him away as the leader. Ordinary people didn't smoke that kind of tobacco. We are going to meet a train. A special train. At the station, the head of the NKVD's secret department, Colonel Malenkov, a namesake of the Politburo member, but no relation, was waiting for them. Track 3 is cordoned off, Comrade Stalin. No unauthorized personnel. They walked through the service areas onto the platform. Track 3 was indeed cordoned off with a canvas tarp. Sentries every 10 meters. Exactly at midnight, a train emerged from the darkness. No number, no identifying marks. A black locomotive and 3 black carriages with drawn curtains. A man emerged from the middle carriage. Krutov barely suppressed a gasp. The stranger's face was disfigured by burns. Where his nose should have been, there was a hole covered in skin. His eyes were different colors, one clearly glass. But the most horrifying part was that the man had no lips, just a grimace of exposed teeth. Herr Stalin. The man spoke German with a Berlin accent. Herr Müller, Stalin replied in perfect German. Heinrich Müller, chief of the Gestapo, officially missing in action since May of 45. Krutov couldn't believe his eyes. One of the main Nazi war criminals was standing on a platform at Kazan Station, talking to Stalin. Did you bring it? The leader asked. Everything as agreed. The RSHA archives, dossiers on American agents, lists of our agents in the Vatican. They began unloading crates from the carriage. Dozens of crates with German markings. And the main thing? Stalin was clearly nervous. In the last crate. But I must warn you, it is dangerous. We lost 8 men while acquiring it. The last crate was special, lead-lined, with radiation symbols. Müller handed Stalin a lead container the size of a cigar case. A sample of uranium-235, weapons grade, from the last batch we didn't get to use. Is this enough? Our physicists believed so, but we didn't have time to test it. The Russians came too quickly. Stalin hid the container in his inner pocket. Your payment. The leader nodded to Malenkov. The colonel handed Müller a suitcase. The German opened it. Inside were documents. A new identity? Colonel Melnikov of the MGB. Died in the line of duty, buried with honors. There is a grave but no body. Now there is a body. A creative approach, Herr Stalin. You will live in Kuibyshev. A house, a pension, security. But if you try to contact the West, I am a dead man, Herr Stalin. Dead men don't talk. Müller returned to the carriage. The train disappeared into the darkness as suddenly as it had appeared. To the Special Department archive. Immediately. Stalin ordered Malenkov regarding the crates. On the way back, the leader was silent. Only near the Kremlin did he speak. Do you know why I met with that scum, Alexander? No, Comrade Stalin. The Americans also took out Nazis. Von Braun is making rockets for them. Göring's younger brother is making planes. What are we supposed to do? We killed off our own cadres in '37. We have to use foreign carrion. But Müller? Yes, a war criminal. But he knows the Vatican's entire agent network, and the Pope is preparing a crusade against communism. We need to know their plans. In December, Krutov accidentally learned what happened to the uranium container. He drove Stalin to Arzamas 16, the secret nuclear center. There, Kurchatov reported personally. The German sample helped us solve the problems with the detonator. Without it, we would have spent at least another year. So, Müller didn't lie. No, Comrade Stalin, the Germans really were one step away from creating the bomb. Many years later, in the 70s, Krutov met a strange old man with a disfigured face in Kuibyshev. The old man recognized him first. Herr Driver, how are you? It was Müller. 80 years old, but alive. He had indeed lived out his life under a false name in the Volga city, receiving an MGB colonel's pension. You know, I often think about what would have happened if the Führer had listened to me. I proposed a deal with Stalin back in '43 to divide the world in half. But the Führer was obsessed with racial superiority. Comrade Stalin, however, proved to be a pragmatist. He used everyone, us, the Americans, the Chinese, a great manipulator. Müller died in 1983. On his grave, a modest plaque. Melnikov, 1st P. Veteran of State Security. And no one in Kuibyshev knew they were burying one of the main executioners of the Third Reich. And Krutov, after that November meeting, understood. The Cold War had far more shades than just black and white. Enemies became allies. Allies became enemies. And Stalin played this game masterfully, using everyone and trusting no one. But the most terrifying discovery still awaited Krutov, when he learned the truth about the leader's doubles. Chapter 7. Doubles and Substitutions, February 1950. After the break with Yugoslavia and the start of the Korean War, Stalin's paranoia reached its peak. He saw conspiracies everywhere, changed routes 3 times per trip, and most importantly, used doubles more and more frequently. On February 14th, something happened that made Krutov doubt his own sanity. At 9 p.m., he drove Stalin to the Bolshoi Theater for the opera, Boris Godunov. He dropped him off at the service entrance and went to the garage to wait. At 10:30 p.m., a call came. Report to the near Dhaka immediately. Krutov rushed over, expecting to find an empty house, but Stalin was sitting calmly in his office reading documents. Where are we going, Comrade Stalin? Nowhere. I've been here all evening. You must be mistaken, Alexander. Krutov was dumbfounded. He himself had driven the leader to the theater just an hour ago. But he didn't argue. That would be suicide. Returning to the garage, he checked the trip log. There was no record of a trip to the theater, as if it had never existed. The next day, Vlasik called him on the carpet. Why did you drive to the dacha without a summons? But I got a call. Who called? There's nothing in the call log. Krutov realized he was either going insane or something was happening that was beyond his comprehension. The solution came a week later. On February 21st, he drove Stalin to a meeting in the Kremlin. The leader entered the building through the main entrance. 5 minutes later, Krutov was summoned to the side entrance. Stalin got into the car there. Same tunic, same mustache, same pipe. To the dacha. Quickly. The voice was almost identical, but Krutov, having spent hundreds of hours with Stalin, caught the difference. The intonation was slightly higher, the pronunciation clearer. The real Stalin spoke with a slight Georgian accent. At the dacha, this Stalin changed into casual clothes and sat down to play billiards with Malenkov, who had arrived earlier. They played for 3 hours until the phone rang. Yes, understood. On my way. The double took off the casual clothes, put on the tunic, and got into the car. At the Kremlin, he entered through the side entrance, and 5 minutes later, the real Stalin emerged from the main entrance. The meeting had lasted 4 hours, and Malenkov could confirm that the leader had been at the dacha the whole time. "Did you notice?" Stalin asked on the way home. "Notice what, Comrade Stalin?" "Don't play dumb. I know you noticed. You have a sharp eye. The double?" "Doubles. Plural. There are 4 of them." Krutov whistled. 4 doubles. This is an entire system. Felix Dadaev, a former actor, plays me at public events. Yevsey Lubitsky, for trips around the city. Andrei Pospelov, for the dacha. And Gavrila Arutyunyan, the most similar one, for special occasions. But why are you telling me this? Because you will be driving all of them. And you must know who is who. Dadaev smokes Belomor, even though I give him my tobacco. Lubitsky limps on his left leg. Old wound. Pospelov is 15 years younger than me. You can see it in his hands. Arutyunyan. He's trickier. He's gotten too into the role. Sometimes he forgets he isn't the real Stalin. He has to be reminded. In March of '50, Krutov witnessed how the double system worked. On March 5th, the future anniversary of his death, an assassination attempt occurred. They were driving down the Arbat. Krutov was driving Arutyunyan, the most similar double. Suddenly, a truck ahead slammed on its brakes, blocking the road. Men with submachine guns jumped out of the back. Krutov reacted instantly. Reverse, a handbrake turn, gas to the floor. Bullets rattled against the armor. Arutyunyan sat calmly, not even ducking. "To the Kremlin, quickly!" he ordered in Stalin's voice. But Krutov drove to Lubyanka, as was prearranged. In case of an attempt, not to the Kremlin, where the attack might continue, but to the safest place. Beria met them personally. "Alive? Excellent. Where is the real one?" "At the dacha, in Volinskoye, under guard," Arutyunyan replied. "Good thing we used you, Gavrila. Otherwise, the country would have been left without a leader." The attackers were caught an hour later. It turned out to be a group of former Vlasovites inserted by the Americans. But Krutov suspected it was more complicated. They knew the route too precisely. The truck appeared too perfectly on time. A week later, Arutyunyan disappeared. Officially, a heart attack. Unofficially, Krutov heard he was eliminated on the real Stalin's orders. He got too into the role. Started giving orders in my name. "That is unacceptable," the leader said. A new double was found to replace Arutyunyan, Rashid Galiev, a Tatar from Kazan. They remade him for 3 months. Plastic surgery, voice coaching, mannerism training. By August of '50, he was ready. On September 2nd, an incident occurred that showed how perfected the double system was. 3 Stalins were in the Kremlin simultaneously. The real one was receiving a Chinese delegation. Dadaev was at a meeting at the Ministry of Defense. Galiev was at a reception honoring Tankers Day. Krutov drove them all, one after another. And by the end of the day, he himself was confused about who was who. He could only tell by tiny details. The smell of their tobacco, the way they sat in the car, the intonations of their voices. But one night, in November of '50, something happened that made Krutov doubt whether the real Stalin even existed. He arrived at the dacha to pick up the leader. Stalin got in, ordered him to the Kremlin. Halfway there, the special high-security phone rang. "Hello, Alexander? Why did you leave without me?" It was Stalin's voice on the line. Krutov turned around. Stalin was sitting in the car, but Stalin was also speaking on the phone. Comrade Stalin, you are in the car, aren't you?" "What car?" "I'm at the dacha. Return immediately." The passenger in the back laughed. "Don't listen, Alexander. That's Galiev fooling around. I'm taking him to Beria for instruction. But how to know which one was real?" Both looked identical, spoke identically, even laughed identically. "The password!" Krutov shouted in desperation. "Aurora!" said the passenger. "Aurora!" repeated the voice on the phone. The password matched, but that meant all the doubles knew it. Krutov made a decision. He drove to Lubyanka, let Beria sort it out. But a surprise awaited him at Lubyanka. Stalin was already sitting there, a third one that evening. Ah, Alexander. Good timing. Will you take Comrade Galiev to the dacha? He is filling in for me tonight. And take Comrade Dadayev to the Bolshoi Theater. I will be at 2 events simultaneously. Only then did Krutov realize. All 3 in the office were doubles. Comrade Beria. Where is Comrade Stalin? Comrade Stalin is where he is supposed to be. And where he is supposed to be, you are not supposed to know. That night, Krutov drove doubles until morning. One Stalin was at the theater. Another was at the dacha receiving Molotov. A third was in the Kremlin working with documents. And the real one. Krutov only saw the real Stalin 3 days later. The leader looked rested, rejuvenated. I was in Sochi, incognito. First vacation in 5 years. Thanks to my doubles, the country didn't even notice. But Krutov suspected it wasn't about a vacation. During those days when doubles replaced Stalin, arrests took place in Leningrad. A group of doctor wreckers was shot, and the Minister of State Security, Abakumov, was dismissed. The leader had created the perfect alibi for himself. He wasn't in Moscow, which meant he had nothing to do with it. The double system worked right up until Stalin's death, and maybe even after. Chapter 8. Beria in the rearview mirror. January 1951 began with the arrest of the Minister of Security, Abakumov. Beria was triumphant. His main rival had been eliminated. But Stalin, as always, was playing his own game. On January 15th, late at night, the leader ordered Krutov to prepare the car. We're going visiting, no security. The address was surprising. 17 Malaya Nikitskaya Street. Krutov knew all the government mansions in Moscow, but this address meant nothing to him. They pulled up to a nondescript 2-story house. Stalin got out, rang a coded bell. 2 long, 3 short. A young woman in a dressing gown opened the door. Expecting guests, Tamara? Stalin asked. The woman turned pale, backed away. From the depths of the apartment, Beria emerged, in slippers, holding a glass of cognac. Comrade Stalin, what a surprise. A surprise? You yourself invited me to see your new hobby. Krutov understood. They had arrived at one of Beria's secret houses, where he held his orgies. Legends circulated about these houses, but few knew the addresses. Come in, Comrade Stalin. Tamara, cognac for our dear guest. They went inside. Krutov remained in the car, but through the partially open window, he heard the conversation. A beautiful girl. How old is she? Don't lie, Lavrentiy. I checked. 16. The daughter of the executed General Petrov. She came herself, asking for her mother. And you, of course, helped. In exchange for… What? The sound of a slap was heard, followed by a woman's scream. Don't touch her, Comrade Stalin. She is innocent. But you are guilty, Lavrentiy. The list. What list? Don't play dumb. The list of my trips for the last year. You gave it to the Americans. Comrade Stalin, I swear. No need to swear. I have proof. The only question is whether to shoot you now or later. Silence. Then Beria's voice, broken and pathetic. I didn't give it to the Americans. I gave it to the Chinese. The Chinese? Why? Mao is preparing a separate peace with America. He wants to get out from under our control. I thought if I gave him leverage against you, he would be more compliant. Idiot. Mao uses any information against us. What will you do with me? Nothing for now. I need you to keep the others in fear. But one mistake and you're a dead man. And let the girl go. With her mother. Stalin came out 10 minutes later. He got in the car, lit his pipe. I saw his car when we drove up. Yes, sir. A ZIS 110 like ours. Remember the number and remember the address. When I'm gone, Beria will be the first to come here, to destroy the traces. Krutov remembered, and he turned out to be right. On March 5, 1953, a few hours after Stalin's death, the house on Malaya Nikitskaya burned down, along with everyone who was there. But that was later. For now, in January 1951, the game continued. On January 28th, Krutov was driving Beria. Stalin had ordered him to serve the Politburo members in his free time. Beria was drunk, which rarely happened. You know, driver, your boss is a genius, an evil genius, but a genius. He has all of us on a hook. Everyone has compromising material. Everyone has a skeleton in the closet. I'm not supposed to. Oh, come on, you're not a fool. You see everything, you understand everything. Tell me, did Stalin ever talk about me? No, Comrade Beria. You're lying, but you're doing the right thing. He probably calls me an enemy? Krutov was silent. See? You're silent, so it's true. And do you know why he doesn't get rid of me? Because I'm the only one who knows all his secrets. If he kills me, the secrets will surface. What secrets? Beria laughed. Oh, there are many. For example, do you know why Nadezhda Alliluyeva died? Officially suicide, but in reality, Comrade Beria, we have arrived. They were standing at Beria's mansion on the garden ring. Beria got out, swaying. You're a coward, driver, but that's right. In our world, cowards live longer than heroes. In February, an incident occurred that showed the true relationship between Stalin and Beria. The two of them were driving to a meeting about the Korean War. In the car, Beria was reporting on the progress of the fighting. The Americans are retreating. The Chinese volunteers are pushing them back. Volunteers? Lavrenti, don't make me laugh. That is Mao's regular army. But officially, you too are an honest communist. But unofficially, you are preparing a coup. Beria flinched. Comrade Stalin, Silence. I know about your meetings with the generals. I know about the accounts in Switzerland. I know about the agreements with the English. If you know, why don't I shoot you? Who will do the dirty work? Molotov? He's as clean as a baby. Malenkov? A coward. Khrushchev? A fool. You? A scoundrel. But a smart scoundrel. I need people like that. Beria was silent, looking out the window. Krutov saw his face in the mirror, a mixture of fear and hatred. But remember, Lavrenti, one wrong move, and you're a corpse. I've written a will. It's all about you. If something happens to me, the will be published. Where is it? That you will never know. They arrived at the Kremlin and got out silently. But before entering the building, Beria turned to Krutov. You heard everything. Remember, when he is gone, I will remember who knows what. The threat was direct. Krutov understood. After Stalin's death, his days were numbered. In March of '51, Krutov witnessed the last private meeting between Stalin and Beria. It was at the Dachau, late in the evening. Lavrenti, I am dying. Comrade Stalin, the doctors say what they are ordered to. But I feel it. I have 2 years left, 3 at most. Who will you appoint as successor? Nobody. Let them fight it out. The strongest will survive. But the country? The country will survive. It always survives. But you likely won't. Beria turned pale. What do you mean? You will be killed first. You know too much. You've offended too many. My advice, leave. Now, while I'm alive and can cover for you. Where? To Georgia, or further, even to Argentina, to the Nazis. I am not a traitor. We are all traitors, Lavrenti. The only question is who we betray, and when. That was their last meeting. Stalin never received Beria again, and on June 26, '53, Beria was arrested and shot. Stalin's prophecy came true, but that was later. For now, Krutov continued to drive the leader to meetings that no one knew about, and the most secret meeting awaited him. Chapter 9. The Last Conspiracy. October 1952. The doctor's plot was gaining momentum. Professors Vinogradov, Kogan, Feldman, Egorov were arrested. The entire flower of Soviet medicine. They were accused of attempting to poison the country's leadership. But Krutov knew the truth. On October 12th, he drove Stalin to a secret meeting at a mansion on the Arbat. People in white coats had gathered there. Not the arrested doctors, those who remained free. Comrades, the time has come, Stalin began. Enemies of the people have penetrated the very heart of medicine, but you are clean, proven cadres. Professor Myasnikov, chief therapist of the Kremlin hospital, raised his hand. Comrade Stalin, may I ask a question? Vinogradov treated you for 10 years. Surely he... Vinogradov is an American spy. 1-2. I have proof. He was slowly poisoning me with mercury. Krutov shuddered. He had seen Stalin taking medicine from Vinogradov just a week ago. What do you want from us? Asked another doctor. To create a new medical service. Secret. Only for the top leadership. You will live in a closed town, with no right to leave. In return, full provisions, any equipment. And our families? They will go with you. Or they will stay here as hostages. The doctors looked at each other. There was no choice. There is one more task, Stalin continued. We need to develop a poison, a special one. That causes a stroke after a specific time. A day, a week, a month. Why do you need this? Myasnikov dared to ask. There are people who must die a natural death, for the good of the state. The meeting ended 2 hours later. The doctors left, but Stalin remained. A man who had been sitting silently in the corner the whole time approached him. Krutov did not immediately recognize him as Professor Myranovsky, the head of the NKVD's toxicology laboratory. Comrade Stalin, the preparation is ready. Tested? On 3 prisoners. It works perfectly. A stroke 72 hours after ingestion. Stalin took the vial of clear liquid. No taste? No smell? Absolutely. It can be added to any food or drink. Antidote? None exists. The process is irreversible. The leader hid the vial in his inner pocket. You are free, Professor. And remember, not a word of this to anyone. In the car, Stalin was pensive, then suddenly asked, Alexander, do you believe in fate? I don't know, Comrade Stalin. I do, and I know my fate. I will be killed, not by enemies, by my own. Who? All of them. Beria, Khrushchev, Malenkov. They have already agreed. They are waiting for the right moment. But you can... What? Arrest them all? Then who will run the country? No, Alexander. I chose these wolves myself. Now I am reaping the rewards. On October 27th, something happened that confirmed Stalin's words. Krutov was driving Malenkov and Khrushchev. They had asked for a ride from the Kremlin. In the car, thinking the driver didn't understand Ukrainian, Khrushchev said, "The old man has gone completely mad. He arrested the doctors. Now he'll come for us." Quiet, Nikita, the driver. He's Russian. He doesn't understand. Listen, Georgie, we must act. Beria won't agree. Beria will be the first to agree. He's the most scared. Krutov pretended not to understand anything, but that evening he reported to Stalin. I know, the leader replied calmly. Let them prepare. I am preparing too. In November, the preparation for the conspiracy became obvious. The Politburo members met secretly, without Stalin. Krutov drove them and saw everything. How they whispered, passed notes to each other, destroyed documents. On November 15th, Stalin summoned Postkrebyshev. Prepare the arrest warrants for Beria, Malenkov, Khrushchev, Molotov, Kaganovich, Mikoyan. All of them, Comrade Stalin? All of them. But not now, after the new year. Let them think I know nothing. Postkrebyshev left, and Stalin took out that same vial from Myranovsky. Do you know what this is, Alexander? No, Comrade Stalin. My insurance. If they strike first, I will have time to respond. In December, the tension reached its peak. Stalin rarely left the dacha, receiving only trusted people. But on December 27th, the unexpected happened. Krutov arrived at the dacha to pick up Stalin. The leader was in a strange state, agitated, his eyes shining. We're going to the Kremlin, to meet the conspirators. Comrade Stalin, maybe security? No need. I want to look them in the eyes. The entire Politburo had indeed gathered in the Kremlin. Stalin entered unexpectedly. They clearly weren't expecting him. Continue, comrades. Don't be shy. Discussing how to get rid of me? Silence. Why are you silent? Beria, you're the main conspirator. Speak. Comrade Stalin, we were discussing economic matters. You're lying. Fine. I have a proposal for you. I am leaving. Voluntarily. In March, I will transfer power collectively. Do you agree? The Politburo members looked at each other. It was a trap, but what kind? And what in return? Malenkov asked cautiously. Life. Mine and yours. I will go quietly, you don't touch me. Agreed? We need to think. Think. Until March. Then it will be too late. Stalin left, leaving them in confusion. In the car, he laughed. Did you see their faces? They didn't expect that. Now they'll wonder if I'm bluffing or not. Are you really leaving? 2 wars, 30 years in power. Enough. Let the young ones rule. But Krutov saw a cunning glint in the leader's eyes. Stalin was planning something. Something no one knew about. They met the new year, 1953, at the dacha. Stalin was alone. He had even let the servants go. Only Krutov remained, to drive if needed. At midnight, the leader raised a glass of cognac. To the last conspiracy, Alexander. The most important one of my life. What conspiracy? A conspiracy against death. I will deceive them all. Enemies, friends, and death itself. Krutov didn't understand those words then. He only understood later, in March, when it all happened. But more on that in the next part of the story. Chapter 10. The Woman in Black. February 5th, 1951. Moscow was covered in snow. The city was frozen. In such weather, even government cars preferred not to go out. But on this very day, Stalin ordered preparations for a trip. Novodevichy Cemetery. And bring a shovel. A strange order, but Krutov was used to not being surprised. They left at dusk. Stalin was in a simple greatcoat, without insignia. At Novodevichy, a watchman, an old man with a lantern, was waiting for us. Come in, comrade. Everything is ready. They walked between the graves for about 15 minutes. The snow crunched underfoot. The lantern snatched monuments and crosses from the darkness. Finally, they stopped at an unmarked mound in a far corner of the cemetery. Dig, Stalin ordered Krutov. Dig what, Comrade Stalin? The grave, not deep, about 30 centimeters. Krutov dug, not understanding why this was necessary. Under the snow, fresh earth was revealed. Someone had recently dug here. Stalin. At a depth of 30 centimeters, the shovel hit something hard. Enough! Use your hands now! Stalin shone the lantern. Krutov cleared the earth with his hands. Underneath was a metal box, similar to an army ammunition chest. Get it out. The box was heavy, about 20 kilograms. Stalin opened it with a key. Inside were documents in an oilcloth wrapper and photographs. Do you know whose grave this is? The leader asked. No, Comrade Stalin. Nadezhda Alliluyeva, my wife. Krutov was stunned. Everyone knew that Alliluyeva was buried at Novodevichy, but in a different place, by the central alley, with a monument. That grave is for the people. This one is the real one. She was buried here in 32, secretly, at night. But why? Because she didn't commit suicide, as everyone was told. And I didn't kill her, as the enemies whisper. She died of an illness, of the very illness that is now being treated in the secret laboratory. Stalin took a photograph from the box. A young woman with sad eyes. Blood cancer. They didn't know how to treat it then. She suffered for 2 years. She begged me, kill me. I can't take it anymore. But I couldn't. She died on her own, but not from a bullet. From the illness. Why lie then? The leader's wife cannot die of an illness. It is weakness, and weakness in 32 meant the end. The enemies would have taken advantage of it. Suddenly, a figure in black appeared from the darkness. Krutov reached for his pistol, but Stalin stopped him. Calm down. This is one of ours. The figure approached. A woman of about 50, all in black. Her face was covered by a veil. Hello, Joseph. The voice was quiet, but Krutov recognized the Georgian accent. Hello, Ketavan. Ketavan Galadze, Stalin's sister, whose existence only a few knew about. Officially, she had died in 1937. Did you bring it? Stalin asked. Yes, As you asked. The woman handed the leader a bundle. Stalin unwrapped it. Inside was a child's photograph and a lock of blonde hair. This is your grandson, Joseph, Yakov's son. He lives in Georgia, under a false name. I will tell him the truth when he turns 21. Don't. Let him live a normal life. But he is your blood. That's exactly why. My blood is a curse. Everyone I loved is dead. Let the boy be happy far away from me. They spoke for another 10 minutes in Georgian. Krutov didn't understand, but he felt it. The conversation was important. There is something else. Krutov took out an envelope. A letter. From him. Stalin flinched. He's alive? Yes, in a camp in Kolyma, under a false name. The guards think he's an ordinary prisoner. Yakov, my son is alive. Krutov couldn't believe his ears. Yakov Jugashvili, Stalin's eldest son, had officially died in German captivity in 1943. Stalin read the letter by the lantern light. A tear rolled down his cheek, the first and last time Krutov saw the leader cry. He writes that he holds no grudge. He understands why I disowned him, for the country. He asks for only one thing, to be allowed to die under his own name. Allow him, Iosif. I can't. If they find out he's alive, questions will start. Where was he for 8 years? Why not in captivity? They'll decide he's a traitor. But he is your son. I already chose between my son and the country once. I chose the country. I can't do it a second time. Ketevan sobbed. You are a monster, Yosef. Yes, but a monster who saved the country from other monsters. The woman left, dissolved into the darkness. Stalin stood by the grave, sorting through the photographs. Look here, Alexander. Nadia on our wedding day. Happy. And here, a year before her death. See her eyes? Already dead. She knew she was dying. Comrade Stalin, maybe we should go back. It's cold. In a moment. There is one more thing. The leader took a sealed envelope from the box. This is my real will. Not the one in the Kremlin. That one is for them. For the wolves. But this is the truth. About Yakov. About my grandson. About where the documents on the collusion with the Americans are hidden. Why are you telling me this? Because you are the only one I trust. When I am gone, you will give this letter to the person who comes and says the password. Aurora 2. Only to him. Stalin put the letter back in the box, closed it, buried it. The grave, once again, became an unmarked mound. On the way back, the leader was silent, only saying near the dacha. You know, Alexander, the most terrible thing isn't death. The most terrible thing is to outlive everyone you loved. I have. And now I wait for those I created to outlive me. In March of 1951, Krutov found out what happened to Yakov. The head of the Kolyma camp sent a secret report. Prisoner Jugashvili, YI, listed under the name Ivanov, died of pneumonia. Stalin read the report and threw it into the fireplace. Now he is truly dead and can rest in peace. But Krutov remembered the camp number and the name of the warden. After Stalin's death, he made inquiries. It turned out there was no prisoner Ivanov in that camp. But there had been a mass escape in March of 1951. 5 prisoners escaped into the taiga and disappeared. Maybe Yakov did survive after all. Maybe somewhere in the Siberian wilderness, the son of the great leader lived out his days. Krutov never found out the truth. And the letter from the grave was collected by a man who came in 1964 and gave the password. He was a young Georgian, looking very much like Stalin in his youth. The grandson? Krutov didn't ask. He handed over the letter and forgot. Almost forgot. Because some secrets are better buried forever. Chapter 11. The Son for the Father. March 1952. A year before Stalin's death, an event occurred that overturned all of Krutov's ideas about war, captivity, and betrayal. On March 15th, deep in the night, Stalin ordered the car prepared for a long trip. We are going to Byelorussia, the border. Take gasoline canisters and dry rations for 2 days. They left at 3 o'clock in the morning. Stalin was in his marshal's uniform with all his medals, a rarity for secret trips. They drove in silence for 8 hours, stopping only to refuel. Near the city of Orsha, they were met by Colonel General Serov, Beria's deputy. "Comrade Stalin, everything is ready. The Poles are in place." "And ours?" "Also. Waiting in the woods, 5 kilometers from the border." They drove on, now with an escort. An hour later, they stopped on a forest road. Ahead, about 100 meters away, stood a Polish uazik. "Wait here." Stalin went toward the Poles alone. 2 men got out of the uazik, a Polish general and a man in civilian clothes. They talked about something for 10 minutes. Then the general waved his hand. A group of people under convoy emerged from the forest. 5 men in German uniforms, shackled. As they approached, Krutov recognized one of them. It was Field Marshal Paulus, commander of the 6th Army at Stalingrad. But it wasn't Paulus who shocked Krutov. Among the prisoners was a Soviet officer, emaciated, gray-haired, but alive. And Krutov recognized him from photographs. Yakov Djugashvili, Stalin's eldest son. The leader stood motionless, looking at his son. Yakov also looked at his father. Without anger, without reproach, just looking. "Hello, father," Yakov said in Georgian. "Hello, son," Stalin replied. They didn't hug, didn't shake hands, just stood 3 meters apart. Forgive me for not dying a hero," Yakov spoke quietly, but Krutov heard. "You did die. In 43. For everyone. I know. Thanks to the Germans, they kept it a secret, hoped for an exchange, and they got it. Paulus and 4 generals for you alone. I am not worth that price." "No, but Stalin's son is." The Polish general approached. "Comrade Stalin, time. American planes are making a flyover in an hour." Stalin nodded. Serov approached Yakov with documents. "Your new identity. Petrov Ivan Stepanovich. War invalid. Pension. A house in Siberia. Forbidden to leave." "And if I refuse?" Yakov asked. "Then you will die for real. Here and now," Stalin said harshly. Yakov smirked. "Still the same, father. Fine. I will be Petrov." The Poles took the Germans away. Yakov got into our car. Before leaving, he turned to his father. "You know, in captivity, I thought a lot. Why did you disown me? And I understood. You couldn't do otherwise. If you had agreed to the exchange back in 42, the army would not have forgiven. Generals would have started trading themselves for soldiers. Do you understand?" "I understand, and I hold no grudge. But I cannot live as Stalin's son anymore. Let me die as Petrov. Live as you wish, but remember, to the world you are dead, and must remain dead." The car with Yakov drove away. Stalin remained standing on the road, watching it go. "He forgave me, Alexander. The son forgave the father for betrayal." "You did not betray Comrade Stalin. You chose between your son and the country." "Beautifully said. But we both know the truth. I betrayed my son for power, and he knows it, but he forgave." On the way back, Stalin told the truth about Yakov's captivity. He didn't surrender. He was shell-shocked. They took him unconscious. The Germans immediately realized who they had caught. They offered an exchange. Yakov for Paulus. I refused. Publicly disowned him. Stalin's son does not surrender. But he was alive. For the Germans, yes. For us, no. A dead hero is better than a living prisoner. And now? What if someone finds out? They won't. Serov will see to it. And Yakov understands. If the truth comes out, many will suffer. Those who helped organize the exchange. They returned to Moscow 2 days later. Stalin immediately summoned Beria. The operation was successful. Paulus is with the Poles. And Comrade Yakov? What Yakov? My son died in 43. Beria understood the topic was closed forever. But a month later, Krutov received a strange assignment. To deliver a package to Krasnoyarsk. To hand it personally to a certain Petrov, I.S. The package was heavy. Books, warm clothes, canned goods. Petrov lived in a small house on the outskirts of the city. An aged but recognizable Yakov opened the door. "From my father?" he asked. "Yes, sir." "Tell him thank you, but no more. I want to live my own life." Krutov relayed the message. Stalin listened and never mentioned his son again. But Krutov noticed. A photograph appeared in a frame on the leader's desk. Small, inconspicuous. A young officer in an artillery lieutenant's uniform. Yakov before the war. After Stalin's death, Krutov tried to find Yakov Petrov, but there was no such person in Krasnoyarsk. Neighbors said he left in '54 after the amnesty. Where? Nobody knew. Maybe to Georgia. Maybe abroad. Or maybe he really died, as recorded in the documents. In the 70s, Krutov met a man in Tbilisi who looked very much like Yakov. The same eyes, the same profile. The man introduced himself as Georgy Petrovich. He worked as a history teacher. "Are you, by any chance, from Krasnoyarsk?" Krutov asked. "No. I'm a native of Tbilisi. Why?" It seemed like we had met. The man looked closely at Krutov. "Perhaps. The world is small, especially for those who drove important people." And he left without saying goodbye. Krutov didn't look for him. Some secrets must die with their keepers, but Krutov did uncover one secret. In the MVD archive, he found the file of Petrov I.S. The last entry, May 9, 1975. Subject died of a heart attack. Buried at Novodevichi Cemetery. Grave without a name, by special order. Krutov found this grave. A small mound next to Nadezhda Alleluyeva's grave. No plaque, no cross. Only the plot number. The son had returned to his mother, even if only after death. Chapter 12. The Chinese Trace. December 1952. 3 months before Stalin's death, Mao Zedong secretly arrived in Moscow. Officially, the chairman of the PRC was in Beijing. Sick. But Krutov saw with his own eyes how on December 14th, a short, portly Chinese man emerged from a special train on the backup tracks of the Belaruski railway station. "To the dacha in Volinskoye. It's prepared there," Stalin ordered. The dacha in Volinskoye was special. Completely isolated, with an underground bunker and a listening system in every room. Stalin used it for meetings with those he did not trust. Mao did not come alone. With him were an interpreter and a man in the uniform of a PLA general. But the most interesting, the third escort, was a European who spoke Russian with an American accent. "Comrade Stalin," Mao bowed. But there was no reverence in the bow, rather formality. "Comrade Mao, unexpected. In the telegram, you wrote you were ill. Illness is an inconvenient cover for secret visits, as you yourself taught." They went into the house. Krutov remained in the car but turned on the listening device. Stalin had allowed it, even ordered him to record. "Why did you come?" The leader didn't waste time on diplomacy. "To talk about the future, yours and ours. My future is not long. The years are taking their toll. That is precisely why I am here. After you, there will be chaos in the USSR. Beria, Khrushchev, Malenkov. They will fight for power, perhaps. But those are our internal affairs, which affect the entire communist world. I offer an alternative." "What kind?" "Unification. Real, informal. The USSR and China as a single state, the capital in Beijing." Stalin laughed. "Are you serious? You are proposing I surrender the country?" "I am proposing the creation of an empire that will have no equal. 1 billion people under the red flag." "Under whose leadership?" "Mine, naturally. You said yourself your time is passing. And my successor." "There will be no successor. After your death, I will bring in troops as a peacekeeper. Your marshals will support it. I have already spoken with Zhukov." Krutov nearly dropped the headphones. "Zhukov, a traitor." "Zhukov is retired," Stalin said coldly. "But he is loved in the army. One word from him, and the military will support it. You underestimate the Russian people, Comrade Mao. We do not surrender. I am not proposing surrender. I am proposing an alliance. You remain the nominal leader until your natural death. Then, a smooth transition of power. And if I refuse, the American spoke up. Then we will support Comrade Mao in his right to leadership in the communist movement, including military aid. Who are you? Stalin asked. John Foster Dulles, special representative of President Eisenhower. The future U.S. Secretary of State in Stalin's house. Krutov couldn't believe his ears. So, that's how it is. Stalin lit his pipe. America and China against the USSR. An interesting setup. Not against, Comrade Stalin. For a new world order. 3 powers, the USA, China, and Europe. Russia can either be part of the Chinese sphere or cease to exist. Are you threatening nuclear war? We are offering peace on our terms. Stalin was silent for about 5 minutes. Then he took a map from the desk. Look, this is a secret map of our nuclear facilities. 150 medium-range missiles aimed at the USA, 30 at China. We may not win the war, but we will turn half the world into a radioactive wasteland. Bluff, said Dulles. Check. Stalin pressed a button on the desk. A minute later, Colonel General Kurchatov entered the room. Comrade Stalin, the installations are ready to launch, awaiting the order. Show our guests. Photographs appeared on the table. Launch silos, missiles, nuclear warheads. This is a photo montage. Dulles was clearly nervous. Igor Vasilievich, demonstrate. Kurchatov turned on a radio receiver, tuned it to a special frequency. From the speaker came, Object 1 ready. Object 2 ready. Object 3 ready. 150 voices. 150 confirmations. Mao turned pale. You wouldn't dare. I am Stalin. I dare anything. The question is, are you willing to die for your ambitions? The American and the Chinese man looked at each other. What do you want? Dulles asked. Status quo. You don't mess with us, we don't mess with you. A world divided. And Korea? Let it remain divided. The North is ours, the South is yours. Vietnam? Also split. Germany? No changes. 2 states. Mao stood up. You are condemning the world to eternal confrontation. Better confrontation than nuclear war. Or do you want to repeat the fate of Hiroshima on a planetary scale? The guests left an hour later. As he was leaving, Mao remarked, You are making a mistake, Comrade Stalin. The future belongs to Asia. Perhaps, but I will not see it. When the car with the Chinese left, Stalin came out to Krutov. Did you record everything? Yes, sir. Take the recording to Poskrebyshev. Let him hide it in the special archive. This is proof of Mao's betrayal. And General Kurchatov? The missiles. Stalin smirked. What general? Kurchatov is an academic, a civilian. We issued him the general's uniform an hour ago, for persuasiveness. And the missiles? They exist. But not 150, 15. And half of them are faulty. But they don't need to know that. Krutov was amazed. Stalin had outplayed both the Americans and the Chinese with a single bluff. Do you know, Alexander, why I refused the deal? Why? Because Russia is not for sale, not at any price. Let us fall behind. Let us lose the Cold War. But sell the country, never. A week later, a ciphered message arrived from Beijing. Mao had recovered and resumed his duties. Not a word about the visit to Moscow. And 3 months later, Stalin died. And Krutov always suspected. The Chinese trace was involved. Too timely for Mao, too convenient for the Americans. But there was no proof. Only the recording of that conversation, which Krutov hid in a secret place, and which perhaps will one day change the understanding of the Cold War. Chapter 13. Premonition of the End. February 1953. The last month of Stalin's life began strangely. On February 4th, the leader ordered Krutov to burn all the travel logs for his 8 years of service. Why, Comrade Stalin? These are accountability documents, because soon they will become accusations. Who went where, who they met. They will use everything against the dead. They burned the papers in the dacha fireplace for 3 hours. Hundreds of trips, thousands of kilometers, dozens of meetings. everything turned to ash. Now for the next. Stalin took a stack of letters from the safe. This is correspondence with Roosevelt and Churchill. Personal, not official. Krutov caught a glimpse. Letters in English, some handwritten. Roosevelt offered me in '45 to divide not only Europe, but America. The South, to us, under the guise of aiding revolutions. The North, to them. Why did you refuse? Because I realized it was a trap. They would draw us into a war in Latin America, exhaust us, and then strike. The letters burned for a long time. Thick paper, good ink. Stalin watched the fire thoughtfully. Churchill wrote in '46, proposed an alliance against the Americans, England and the USSR against the USA. He even sent an operation plan. And you refused again? What's the point of exchanging one master for another? The English are imperialists just the same. The last thing to go into the fire was a photograph. Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill at Yalta. We all thought we were making history, but history made us, and threw us out like used material. On February 8th, a strange incident occurred. Stalin ordered him to be driven to Lenin's mausoleum. At night, secretly, the mausoleum guard was warned. The leader went down into the tomb alone. He stayed there for an hour. He returned pale. His hands were shaking. I saw him, Alexander, Lenin, lying there, as if alive. And it's been 30 years. They preserved him well. Yes, our chemists did a good job. Do you know what he said to me? Krutov shuddered. Stalin spoke as if Lenin had actually spoken to him. He said, "You betrayed the revolution, Koba. You built an empire instead of communism. And now you will pay the price." Comrade Stalin, what is this? A hallucination? Maybe, or maybe my conscience spoke up, if I still have one left. On February 12th, Stalin began giving away his personal belongings. Krutov got a pipe, a simple wooden one that the leader had used for 20 years. Take care of it. Someday a museum will pay for it. To Poskrebyshev, a watch. To Vlasik, a pistol. He even gave something to Khrushchev. Krutov didn't see what, but Nikita Sergeyevich left the office in tears. He's saying goodbye, Poskrebyshev whispered. He senses the end. On February 15th, Stalin summoned his personal doctor. Not the arrested Vinogradov, but a new one, Professor Lukomsky. Doctor, how long do I have left? Comrade Stalin, your health. Don't lie. I've seen all the tests. Heart, kidneys, liver, everything is worn out. So, how long? With proper treatment. A year, maybe 2. Without treatment. A month or 2. The first serious attack will be the last. Thank you for your honesty. You are free. When the doctor left, Stalin said to Krutov, "A month. I have 1 month to finish my affairs." And he began. February 20th, a secret will, hidden in a Swiss bank. The 21st, an order to liquidate the special folders in the NKVD archive. The 22nd, the release of a group of prisoners from special camps. On February 25th, Stalin's last meeting with his son Vasily took place. Lieutenant General of Aviation, commander of the Moscow Military District Air Force, his father's favorite, although Stalin never showed it. "Vasya, you're a fool," the father began without preamble. "I know, Batya. After my death, they will remove you immediately. You drink too much, you talk too much. I am an officer, You are an alcoholic, but you are my son. Therefore listen, leave. Now. I have documents ready, money, a house in Argentina. I am not a traitor. A traitor is one who dies in vain, and you will die in vain if you stay." Vasily left, slamming the door. He did not leave. And Stalin turned out to be right. He was arrested one day after his father's funeral, 8 years in prison. Then he drank himself to death and died at 40. On February 27th, Stalin did something no one expected. He invited a priest to the dacha, Father Nikolai from the closed church in Peredelkino. "I am going to confess," the leader told Krutov. "But you are a communist. I am a Georgian. And Georgians die Orthodox, even if they were atheists their whole lives." The priest stayed for 2 hours. He came out, pale, crossing himself. Lord, forgive him, and forgive me for absolving such a man of his sins. What did he tell you? Krutov asked. The seal of confession, my son. But I will say one thing. I have never heard of such sins, and I did not think a man could bear so much. On February 28th, the last day of the month, Stalin performed a strange ritual. He gathered all his photographs, with Lenin, with his comrades, with his family, and burned them. Why? Krutov asked. I don't want them after my death, arguing over who was in the photo with whom, who stood closer, who further. Let them remember the deeds, not the faces. He left only one photograph, his own, young, from 1917, the revolutionary Koba, with burning eyes and a dream of a new world. This is how I wanted to remain. Remain. He didn't finish the sentence. On the night of February 28th to March 1st, Stalin did not sleep. He paced the dacha, muttering something, sometimes crying out. The guards were nervous, but did not dare to enter. At 3 o'clock in the morning, the leader summoned Krutov. We're going for a drive. The last trip. Where, Comrade Stalin? To Red Square, to the Kremlin wall. They arrived at 4 in the morning. The square was empty, only the sentries at the mausoleum. Stalin got out of the car, walked to the wall where revolutionaries were buried. This is my place, next to them, but they won't allow it. They will put me in the mausoleum, with Lenin. But that is an honor. It is a curse, to lie as a mummy for the amusement of tourists. No, Alexander, I want to be in the earth, like a human. He stood by the wall for an hour, until dawn. Then he returned to the car. Home. I'm tired. That was their last trip together. On March 1st, Stalin didn't go anywhere. He sat in his office, burning documents. Chapter 14. The night of February 28th to March 1st. That night began as usual. At 11 p.m. on February 28th, Krutov brought Malenkov, Beria, Khrushchev, and Bulganin to the dacha. A normal nightly meeting. Stalin liked to work at night, but something was wrong. The guests were nervous, exchanging glances, as if waiting for something. Comrades, sit down. Stalin looked tired, but his eyes shone feverishly. We need to discuss an important question. What question? Beria asked. My resignation. Silence. The Politburo members looked at each other. A trap or the truth? Are you serious? Malenkov asked cautiously. Absolutely. I am 73, I'm tired. It is time to go. But the country, the people, Khrushchev began. The people will survive, the country too. But you must agree on who will be first. Collective leadership, Beria said quickly. Don't make me laugh. You'll be at each other's throats within a week. You need a leader. They argued for 2 hours. Each pulled the blanket toward himself, but they were afraid to openly state their claims. What if it was a test? At 1 o'clock in the morning, Stalin stood up. All right, I see you are not ready. Think about it. You have time until the party congress. When is the congress? Bulganin asked. In October, if I live that long. The guests began to leave. Beria lingered. Joseph Vissarionovich, are you really sick? And do you really want me to drop dead, Lavrenti? I want clarity. You will have clarity. Soon. Beria was the last to leave. Krutov saw his face in the headlights, a mixture of fear and anticipation. Let's go, Beria ordered his driver. And quickly. Krutov remained at the dacha. Stalin had asked him to wait. At 3 o'clock in the morning, the leader came out of the house. Let's go for a ride. Not for long. They drove along the deserted roads of Kuntsevo. Stalin was silent, smoking his pipe. Then he suddenly ordered a stop at a small pond. Do you know this place? No, Comrade Stalin. Here, in 17, Lenin and I hid from the provisional government. In that house. He pointed to a dilapidated hut. They got out of the car. Stalin walked to the water, threw a stone. Ripples spread in the darkness. Lenin said then, "We will change the world, Koba." And we changed it. But in which direction? We built a great country. We built an empire on bones. Do you know how many died? 20 million in the war, 10 million in collectivization, 5 million in the purges. 35 million, Alexander. An entire country. But it was for the future. What future? The one where people are afraid of their own shadow? Where a son betrays his father, a wife her husband? Stalin threw another stone. I often think, what would Lenin say if he saw what I turned his revolution into? He would understand. The times were different. Time. A convenient excuse for any crime. They returned to the car. Drove back to the dacha. At the gate, Stalin said, "Thank you, Alexander, for all these years. You are the only one who never lied to me. I serve the Soviet Union. No, you served me, and that is more honest." Krutov left at 5 in the morning. He never saw Stalin alive again. What happened next is known from official sources. On March 1st, Stalin did not leave his rooms until the evening. The guards were nervous but afraid to enter. The order was not to disturb. At 10 p.m. a servant entered. The leader was lying on the floor, unconscious. A stroke. But Krutov knew what no one else did. On March 2nd, when Stalin was still alive but unconscious, Beria summoned him. "Where is the stash?" "What stash?" "Don't play dumb. Stalin hid something in the car. Documents? Compromat?" "I don't know anything." Beria struck Krutov across the face. "You're lying. Talk, or you'll rot in a camp." "Comrade Beria, I'm just a driver. You are a witness, and if you don't talk, you'll be a corpse." At that moment, Khrushchev entered. "Lavrenti? He's dying. Let's go." Beria left, but turned at the threshold. "I will return to our conversation." He didn't return. 3 months later, Beria himself was arrested and shot. Chapter 15. A silence, the length of a life. On March 5, 1953, at 21:50 hours, Stalin died. Krutov learned about it from a radio announcement, like the rest of the country. By that time, he had already been in the Lubyanka basement for 3 days. He was arrested on March 2nd, immediately after the conversation with Beria. They didn't press charges, just kept him in solitary. Sometimes an investigator would come and ask the same questions. "Where did Stalin go on February 27th? "To the dacha." "You're lying. The car was spotted in the Khimki area." "Perhaps we were bypassing traffic." "What traffic at 3 in the morning?" And so it went, around and around. About stashes, about documents, about meetings with foreigners. On March 6th, the day after Stalin's death, Krutov was summoned upstairs. Khrushchev was sitting in the office. "Sit down, Alexander Mikhailovich, let's talk." "What is there to talk about? I've told everything." "No, not everything, but that doesn't matter. Something else matters. You know too much about all of us." "I'm a driver. I drive, I don't listen." Khrushchev laughed. "Oh, come on. Stalin trusted you more than us. You know where the documents are." "What documents?" "His will. The real one. Not the one read at the Politburo." "I don't know." "A pity. But even if you don't know, we can't let you live. Too dangerous a witness." "You'll kill me?" "Why? We're not animals. You'll just disappear, like many others." There was a knock on the door. Malenkov entered. "Nikita, we need to decide about the funeral." "In a moment." "Listen, Alexander, I offer you a deal. You remain silent about everything. Always, everywhere, under all circumstances. In exchange for your life, a pension. Agreed?" "Do I have a choice?" "No." Krutov signed a non-disclosure paper. 53 points. Execution for violating any one of them. They released him on March 9th, the day of Stalin's funeral. Krutov stood in the crowd on Trubnaya Square. Watched them carry the coffin. He saw Khrushchev, Malenkov, Beria, Molotov. They walked behind the coffin with mournful faces. "Hypocrites," said a woman next to him. "They're probably glad he's dead." "Quiet, citizen," a man shushed her. "They'll hear." But the woman was right. They were glad. Krutov had seen it in their eyes back on March 1st. After the funeral, Krutov was summoned to the MVD personnel department. You are dismissed due to health reasons. Second group disability. Pension of 200 rubles. Registered address. The city of Vologda. Why Vologda? Because it's far from Moscow, and don't even think about violating the agreement. We have long arms. Krutov left. He lived in Vologda for 30 years under KGB surveillance. He worked as a guard at a car depot. They didn't let him near the cars. He married a second time. His first wife hadn't waited. She remarried, thinking he was dead. He had a son, named him Alexander, in memory of his former self. Every year on March 5th, a man from the organs would visit him. Checked if he remembered the agreement. If he was talking. I remember, Krutov would answer. And you are silent? I am silent. Good. Live on. In 1983, 30 years after Stalin's death, the surveillance was lifted. Andropov, the new general secretary, former head of the KGB, gave the order. Enough. The old man is safe. But Krutov continued to remain silent. Habit, fear, or perhaps loyalty to the word given, not to Khrushchev, but to Stalin. In 1991, when the USSR collapsed, journalists found Krutov. They offered money for his memoirs. A lot of money. Tell us about Stalin, about the secret meetings, about the conspiracies. There's nothing to tell. I was a simple driver. But you must have seen? I saw the road, nothing else. The journalists left with nothing. Only in 1993, a year before his death, Krutov began to write. Secretly at night, hiding the notebooks. He wrote everything. About the meetings, the trips, the conversations, the doubles, the conspiracies, the secrets. Why? His son asked, accidentally finding the notebooks. So the truth remains. Not the one in the textbooks. The real one. But this is dangerous. Son, I am 84. What danger? Death? I've been waiting for it for 30 years. Krutov died on May 7, 1994. There were 5 people at the funeral. His son, his grandson, the neighbors. No one from the authorities came. The son hid the notebooks. He was afraid to publish. The times were troubled. It was unknown how people would react. Only in 2023, 70 years after Stalin's death, did Krutov's grandson decide to hand the diaries over to historians, on the condition that they be published only after his death. Now these diaries are the property of history. Whether it is truth or fiction is for the readers to judge. But one thing is certain. The man who drove Stalin for 8 years took secrets with him that could change our understanding of that era.